Thank you. Thanks so much. My students don't do that. I don't know why. Man, it's such an honor to be here. It's absolutely a pleasure. Thank you for coming. It's awesome to share this stage with my friend, Kara Plichenich, with my friend and former student, Dwayne Taylor. Actually, Dwayne's up next. So if I put you to sleep, he will wake you right back up. So it's something to look forward to. He's fantastic. Like she said, my name is Mark Gudgel. I teach English here in Lincoln, Nebraska, and I run a nonprofit organization that I'll talk to you a little bit more about later. I'm here really to talk about genocide education, about Holocaust education and teaching about those things. And so I want to begin today with a central premise that we'll operate from, and that's this. Holocaust education is about people. It's not about statistics. It's not about locations. It's not about geography or even events. It's about individual human beings. And so that's going to be the premise of what we're talking about today. If you'll take that and set it aside for just a moment, I'd actually like to talk about an individual human being for just a moment. Would you please grab your programs for today's event, if you have them? Find my biography in there. And if you'd grab a pen. Does anybody need a pen? Good, good. Okay. I'm sure that my biography says a lot of really nice things about me academically. It's even quite possible that some of those would be true. But I know that there's one thing that's not included in there yet, and that's that last month I got engaged to the most incredible woman in the world. Thank you. Thanks. Her name is Sonia. And, you know, all the Fulbrights and fellowships absolutely pale in comparison to the opportunity I have to get married to my best friend. So if you would add that to my biography, like me, would be a lot more complete. So thank you. So education. As a teacher, there are a couple of things that I've learned about young people that I think are unequivocally true. The first is that young people are just extraordinarily impressionable. The second is that young people have the capacity and the desire, perhaps more than anyone else, to change the world. So to the first point, young people are impressionable. I illustrate this in my classes this way, so if you'll humor me, everybody here in the audience, by show of hands, how many of you at one point in your life may have believed that on an annual basis, a 6-foot rabbit would lay chocolate eggs in your yard? Right. You're like, well, it sounds ridiculous when you put it that way. It is ridiculous. Let's try again. How many of us in the audience today may have believed at one point in our lives that on an annual basis, an unexplainably altruistic, overweight, jolly man would fly to your house on deer, land on the ceiling, climb down the chimney, whether there was a fire going or not, and put presents under your tree, but only if you were well behaved? Me too. Me too. So the question I have for teachers, the question I have for parents, the question that I have for our society is this. If we can teach young people to believe heretical lies about religious holidays, can we not also teach them to care about one another? Can we not also teach them to serve one another, to see beyond themselves, to lend voices to the voiceless? Can we not teach them that they have a moral obligation to stand up for what's right and to defend those who can't defend themselves? We absolutely can. The second thing that I know about young people is that they have the capacity to change the world. This is the Nebraska State Capitol building, just in case you're very new here. And a lot of amazing things have been done by young people in that building. You know, I think a lot of Americans and even a lot of Nebraskans are unaware of this, but the United States of America actually played a part in ending apartheid in South Africa. The United States of America, on a state-by-state basis, divested our resources from South Africa in an effort to put economic pressure on them to end their practice of state-sanctioned racism. And it was effective. And so I asked my students, because this was done on a state-by-state basis, you know, what forward-minded, progressive champion of human rights of a state do you think led that movement? And they always guess California. It puzzles me. It was Nebraska. It was Nebraska. That movement was led by a very young senator by the name of Ernie Chambers. Nebraska was the first state in the Union by several years to divest from South Africa. That's something we should be proud of as Nebraskans. But fast forward 30 years, and in this same building, you'd find Allie and Michaela, two former students of mine, and I, pleading with the State Retirement Systems Committee to divest our resources from the Sudan, to try to put pressure on Sudan to end a genocide that they are waging against the people of Darfur. Had that bill passed, Nebraska would have been the 28th state in the Union to pass legislation to divest from Sudan. It didn't. And so the question I have for Nebraskans is this: are you proud of the direction that your state is moving in? Does this represent who we are as people? And if not, voters, what are you going to do about it? The Holocaust lends us the opportunity to study any number of things going on in the world today. The Holocaust itself is a unique watershed event. It's the best documented event in the history of the world. And it ties so closely into things that are happening in our world today. We look at apartheid and racism when we study the Holocaust. We look at antisemitism. Antisemitism didn't begin with the Nazis. It didn't end with the Nazis, but it's rampant in our world today, as is racism, sexism, homophobia, religious intolerance. All of these are issues, crimes that were perpetrated by the Nazis and continue to be perpetrated in our world today. And so through the lens of the Holocaust, we examine these things. We study the Holocaust because Holocaust denial is such a huge issue in our world. Whether it's some kid who didn't get enough attention in his mom's basement on a computer blogging, or the president of Iran, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, there are people in the world today that want to change the narrative, that want to lie about what happened, that want to falsify the facts of what we know took place during the Second World War. And if we don't teach about the Holocaust, they may very well be successful in doing that. We teach about the Holocaust because it links us to any number of other events that have taken place in the 20th century. Holocaust wasn't the first or last genocide of the 20th century. A lot of them still have huge ramifications on the world today. My students and I often find particularly interesting the genocide of Armenians. During the First World War, the Ottoman Empire ruthlessly slaughtered 1.5 million Armenians. And to this day, the government of Turkey denies that that even happened. Not only do they deny it, but they insist that the United States deny it as well. And any time the United States Congress threatens to pass legislation that would even acknowledge their crimes, they throw a fit, yank their ambassador out of Washington, D.C., and threaten to kick us off military bases in their country. And in this way, the nation of Turkey has placed a gag order on the United States of America. Politics are trumping the truth. And there is no better study than that of Nazi Germany to illustrate for young people that politics should never trump the truth. We study the Holocaust because in spite of our very best intentions, in spite of our promises of never again, genocide continues to happen in our world today. Since 2003, over half of the 6 million people who live in the Darfur region of Sudan have either been murdered or forcibly displaced from their homes. And it didn't have to happen. We let it. That's one of the central premises of Holocaust education. The Holocaust was not inevitable. It was not ordained. It was not predetermined. This isn't fate. The Holocaust was not an act of God. The Holocaust was an act of man. And more than that, worse than that, the Holocaust is the failure of man to act. Holocaust education gives us the opportunity to study these things. Young people want to know these things. Young people want to act. Young people like Arcade. It's a great name, isn't it? Arcade, that's really his name. Arcade here is seen speaking with Nessie. Arcade, a friend of mine, is one of the leaders of the Rwandan Genocide Teachers Association. And he's speaking with Nessie Godin, a survivor of the Holocaust. Thanks to our friends at the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum, my nonprofit organization was able to pipe Nessie in to speak not only to Arcade, but to 29 other Rwandan educators. And she shared with them her story of survival, and they asked her questions, and they made exchanges, and they got to know each other. And these teachers, these people then, were able to take those stories and that information back to their classrooms and share them with their students. This is Holocaust education. This is young people wanting to make a difference. It was taking place in Rwanda. I became interested in Rwanda after Hollywood made a movie about it. And I got furious when I found out about what had happened in Rwanda, partly because I had to find out from a movie. See, I have a lot of really vivid memories of 1994. I remember Kurt Cobain killing himself. I remember Nancy Kerrigan, Tonya Harding, O.J. Simpson. There was soccer being played somewhere. I have some memories. In fact, I turned 13 on April the 16th, 1994, 10 days into the genocide. I remember that we celebrated that by eating at Valentino's in North Platte, Nebraska. I remember that I received as a gift that day a Sony Discman. For all the people with blank stares, that's like a 20-year-old iPod. So I have a lot of vivid memories of 1994. What I don't remember is genocide. What I don't remember is anybody even mentioning to me that somewhere halfway around the world, 1 million of my fellow human beings were being hacked to death with machetes. It wasn't important enough to talk about, and that made me furious. But it also made me passionate. It inspired me, and I realized as a teacher I had the opportunity to make sure that everybody who came into my classroom didn't leave without that information. And I got really excited about it, and I made it a part of what I do. Today I teach a course called The Literature of the Holocaust. So I had the opportunity in 2008 to travel to Rwanda. And what I learned when I got there was that I had been doing a really, really bad job of teaching about it. See, the problem was this. I had defined Rwanda by their worst 100 days. When I got there, I realized how wrong I was. So if you don't take anything else from my talk today, please hear this. Rwanda is not a genocide. It isn't. Rwanda is not a genocide. What happened in Rwanda between April the 6th and July the 17th, 1994 was unequivocally, undeniably genocide. But Rwanda is a nation. Rwanda is a culture. Rwanda is society, history, geography. Rwanda is people, like the kids who are kicking my butt in a foot race in this picture. It's people. And so now when I teach about Rwanda, I try to teach those things to my students. I try to teach them and show them that Rwanda is the best cup of coffee I've ever shared with anybody else. That Rwanda is great big smiles, warm handshakes, beautiful singing voices. My students find it particularly interesting. Rwanda has an especially progressive culture. In fact, on a month-to-month basis, Rwandans will take 3 hours out of the last Saturday of the month. They call it umuganda. It means contribution in Kinyarwanda. And they'll find something to do in the neighborhood to help out. Maybe they're repairing or fixing. Maybe they're painting. Maybe they're building something, cutting firewood, cooking food for somebody. They make a contribution to their society. 10 million people. Imagine what would happen in the United States of America if 315 million people could see far enough beyond themselves to take 3 hours out of a Saturday to help somebody else. It'd be amazing. Rwanda is such a progressive culture, they've banned plastic bags. They're trash. They can't be gotten rid of, so they just don't use them. The democratically elected parliament in Rwanda is 56% female. It's the only nation in the world that can say that. Just as a point of reference, the democratically elected Congress in the United States of America usually sits right around 17%. So all of these things are Rwanda, and I try to teach them to my students. Rwanda is amazing, but Rwanda is amazing because of the people who live there. When I visited in 2008, I visited a church that in 1994 became the site of a massacre. It's called Ntarama. Ntarama today is a memorial. And on the outside wall of the church hangs this banner. It says, Iyo umenya nawe, ukimenya ntubu waranyishe. If you knew me and you knew yourself, you would not have killed me. Rwanda and teaching about Rwanda gives me the chance to learn more about myself. Gives my students the chance to learn more about the other, to realize that they are so much like us, that we are so much like them, that all of us are human beings. All of us are people. So my friend Drew Bider and I, both having traveled to Rwanda, both having fallen in love with the people and the nation, wanted to make our own umuganda. We didn't know how to go about it, but as teachers, we realized there was a conversation that was extraordinarily difficult for people to have in Rwanda. See, in the United States, to teach about the Holocaust, I could just point to a textbook and say, turn to page 371 and locate the black and white photographs of what happened in Europe 70 years ago. And that's why I have so much admiration for my colleagues in Holocaust education, because we don't do that, and we try so hard to bridge those gaps. In Rwanda, that simply couldn't be done. In Rwanda, 18 years removed from the genocide, it's a conversation about what your family did to your family. And by the way, where was I when all this was going on? It's a very different, very difficult conversation to have. So Drew and I founded the Educators Institute for Human Rights, and we began to export Holocaust education to Rwanda. We put on conferences in Kigali, and we brought teachers in from all over the country. And at these conferences, we brought in experts to teach about the Holocaust, to teach teachers about the Holocaust. And we provided them with materials, tons of materials for them and their students, generously donated by the USHMM and the Anne Frank House, places all over the world. More than anything, we gave them a chance to dialogue with one another, to share ideas, and to converse with one another, to talk people to people about what they were going to do with their own students when they got back to their classrooms. It's still a difficult conversation to have, but it's an important conversation to have, and it's work that we're really proud to be doing. I want to end today by saying thank you. Thank you to the Holocaust survivor community. Thank you in particular to those of you who found inside yourselves the courage to share your stories with young people. This man's name is Lou Leviticus. Lou moved to Lincoln, Nebraska in 1975 to become a professor of agricultural engineering at the university. More than a decade ago, Lou realized he wanted to share his story of surviving the Holocaust. Since that time, he's spoken all over the state of Nebraska and in schools in all neighboring states. He's spoken to dozens of my classes at Southwest High School and hundreds upon hundreds of students sharing his story, telling jokes, shedding tears, shaking hands, giving hugs, sharing himself as a person with my students. Today I wanted to say thank you to Lou. Would you join me in thanking Lou? So I want to wrap up with a challenge for all of us, myself included. Support Holocaust education in Lincoln Public Schools and globally. Visit the Nebraska Holocaust Memorial at Wyuka State Cemetery. Visit the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum. Visit beautiful Rwanda. Learn more about the Holocaust. Learn more about the genocide of the Armenians. Learn more about the genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda. Learn more about genocide in Bosnia, in Cambodia, and the ongoing genocide in Darfur. But more than that, I want to challenge us all to get to know better our Jewish brothers and sisters, to get to know our Bosnian and Sudanese neighbors, to make friends with people in Rwanda, Armenia, Cambodia, and all over the world, because ultimately, Holocaust and genocide education, like all education, is about people. Thank you.